Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So it took me 3 months, but I finally unlocked Knull's potential. But not really. Joking aside, I took a bit of time kind of recording and testing out the new alliance, conquest changes, as well as timeline changes. But I also changed around a lot of things in my account, so I haven't really been putting out videos in the last week or two. But I have a lot of good stuff coming up, so make sure to stay tuned and look forward to that. So because I'm a bit late talking about the costs for Knull going from level 60 to 70, I thought I'd make this video more about the cost it would take using the 10% method to get to 70 versus the 100% method, and comparing the difference between the two. So look at my stash here, you can see that I have about 25,000 BAM and 10,000 CNS, as well as 5,500 CCF, 8,000 TCP, and 9,800 Titan component packs. Since I'm also going to be showing the cost going to a max build after reaching level 70, I'm also showing off the type enhancement kits that I'm going to be using. Here you can see the number of bios that I have available for ranking up, and it's about 105,000. So a lot of bios. I've also saved up about 276 million gold, which is going to be important at the comparison at the end of the video. Off the start here, you can see that native tier 3s, unlike native tier 2s, can use Essence of Dimension as well as Titan component packs to enhance their potential. For native tier 2s, this option is obviously replaced with Black Antimatter, Chaos Normstones, or for X-Men it would be Phoenix Feathers and Macron Shards. If you didn't notice the costs for the materials in gold using the 100% method, I included that information in the top left corner. Although I mentioned in the video that I'll be showing off the 10% method, I don't exclusively use just that percentage. This is because if you fail enhancing your potential, you still keep half of that value afterwards. So because of this, I usually tend to go past 10%, usually around 20% in the beginning, so I have a higher statistical chance of success. And if I end up failing, then the 10% is already set there, which is the minimum amount you can have to activate it, and I can just do that right away. Usually in the higher enhancement levels, so between say 68 to 70 or maybe even 66 to 68, I'll even try using maybe 30% or sometimes 33% at the beginning for that 1 in 3 chance of success. Now I know a lot of people don't want to mess around with the 10% method, they don't usually trust Netmarble or the RNG, so they'll usually go to the 100%. But this video is to kind of show you what the costs would be for those people that don't want to try that or don't believe in this method. I've also been asked what the best distribution for using your materials to fill up the percentage is. There isn't really a correct answer. You don't really want to use materials that you have very little of because they might provide a higher gain. So for me personally, I'm using the CCF because it provides the highest percentage gain for one material used. But if you're low on a particular material, then it doesn't make sense to use that to gain your percentage that way. It would make better sense to kind of balance out your materials so that you're not limited by one material or another. Ideally, if you're around the same level for most of your T3 materials, you'd want to use the CCF because it gives you the most gain. Even though they added the story mode now where you can farm up the Essence of Dimension Titan component packs there as well, you still really need those materials to increase the gears on pretty much every character in the game. So you need way more of those than you need CCF. You can see I failed a lot of times here, but after about 20 tries, I finally got it to succeed. So for the first enhancement, I ended up using 104 CCF and 1.8 million gold. In comparison, the 100% method, I would have used 80 CCF or 750,000 gold. This means that in this stage of enhancement, I lost 24 CCF and 1,050,000 gold. Not really the best start, but this method is based on averages, so there's plenty of time in the upgrades to make up that difference. Similar to the early levels, if you want to upgrade Knull's level, you can also use Black Antimatter, so I'm just showing here how much it costs to go from level 60 to 62. I'm only showing the rank 1 cost here, so it gives you an idea of the total amount that you would need. So skipping ahead here, I'm just using the bio so we can move on to the next enhancement stage. To go from potential level 2 to 3 for Knull using the 100% method, you would need 160 CCF or 221 Essence of Dimension or 181 Titan component packs. Besides this, you also need 1.5 million gold. Similar to the last enhancement, I'm going to be starting off with 20% and then continuing with 10% afterwards. I'm fast forwarding a bit here because I don't want the video to get too long just showing different tries. You can see on this stage of enhancement that it took me a lot less tries than the previous one. In just 5 attempts, I used 56 CCF and 900,000 gold, which would have been 160 CCF and 1.5 million gold if I used the 100% method. That means that at this upgrade, I ended up saving 104 CCF and 600,000 gold. And you can see my total tries so far is 25. And I've ended up saving 80 CCF but losing 450,000 gold. Again, here's the cost for using rank 1 BAM to go from level 62 to 64. And the bio cost is 1,060. I think I previously skipped the bio cost from level 60 to 62, but that amount is 896 if I counted right. Moving along here to the level 3 potential enhancement, or between level 64 to 66, you'll see that it costs 241 CCF, or 331 Essence of Dimension, or 271 Titan component packs, as well as 2.25 million gold if you're using the 100% method. If you're familiar at all with the 10% method, then you might already know that on average you usually end up using more gold, but you end up saving more T3 or T2 materials. And this holds up with the previous results that you saw before, where I was already saving CCF, but I was behind or losing gold already. Now this method is obviously based on averages, so this single instance or this test that I'm doing might not reflect that exactly, but it should give you a good idea. Also, as a quick note, if you're not using the 100% method, then I highly advise that you don't use any percentage over 30%. And even if you're using something as high as 30%, I would only do that maybe once or twice and let it decay down to 10%. The whole point of the 10% method is that you want to use a low amount of materials so you can try more often. Anything over 30 or at most 33, I'd just go with the 100% from my experience. After 7 tries, I succeeded on the enhancement and ended up using 117 CCF and 2,050,000 gold. If I had used the 100% method, I would have used 241 CCF and 2,250,000 gold. Therefore, I ended up saving 124 CCF and 200,000 gold on this stage. In total though, I've saved 204 CCF, but I'm still behind by 250,000 gold. Another quick reference, to upgrade Knull from level 64 to 66, it's 1,193 bios, or alternatively 994 rank 1 black antimatter. Moving along here, I'm able to use the bios and move to the next enhancement level, which costs 481 CCF, or 663 Essence of Dimension, or 541 Titan component packs, and 4.5 million gold. Again, this is with the 100% method. You can see that I'm trying a bit of a higher percent, around 25 to be exact, because the cost at this level is a little bit steep and I want that 1 in 4 chance to possibly succeed. And like I mentioned before, if you fail, half of that amount is still kept in the percentage, so it's usually a better idea to aim a little bit higher in the beginning and then slowly go down. You don't necessarily have to stick to 10% when you're trying the 10% method, even though that doesn't make much sense. I'd say anything around the low 10 to 15% is a suitable amount. Thankfully, after only 8 tries, I was able to get potential level 4 to 5 finished. With those 8 tries, I ended up using 289 CCF and 5,175,000 gold. Again, if I was to have used the 100% method instead, it would have cost me 481 CCF and 4.5 million gold. Using the 10% method, I saved 192 CCF but lost 675,000 gold. That means so far, after 40 tries, I've saved 396 CCF, but unfortunately lost 9,250,000 gold. Even though I still have 1 enhancement level left to go, the results are pretty consistent with the 10% method of using more gold but less materials. To get Knull to level 68, you need 1,341 bios or 1,118 rank 1 black antimatter. For the last and most brutal level of enhancement, the 100% method requires 642 CCF, or 885 Essence of Dimension, or 725 Titan component packs, as well as the 6 million gold to upgrade. Like I mentioned previously, for the last level of enhancement, I tried for a higher success rate, so I went with around 30%. And then slowly started to lower that percentage when I was failing. So I didn't necessarily go straight down to 10% or even 15% like I mentioned previously, but I stayed kind of around 25-20% for a few more tries before letting it go down lower. I know I mentioned that you generally want to stay around 10 to 15% when you're trying multiple times, but for the final stage, since the costs are so high, it does make some sense to try at a higher percentage, maybe 2 or 3 more times before letting it decay to the lower amount. So this might not be how the 10% method works exactly, but I've used this method for pretty much every character in the game, and what I found works the best is the higher level you go, you might want to start off at a higher percentage and then lower it from there, as opposed to just starting or staying at 10% the whole time. Usually I don't go as high up as 30%, but for natives I kind of want to try at a higher percentage in hopes that I don't have to fail too many times. After being blessed by the RNG gods, I got success on my final enhancement, which took only 4 tries and cost me 354 CCF and 5,640,000 gold. For comparison, that would have been 642 CCF and 6 million gold using the 100% method. Meaning for this stage of enhancement, I saved 288 CCF and 360,000 gold. You can see that the final result of me using this method is 44 attempts, and by doing so I ended up saving 684 CCF, but I did end up losing 565,000 gold. Now I might have ended up being pretty lucky with Knull's enhancements, but the results you see here are pretty much what you'll get using this kind of method. You will end up more than likely saving on T2 and T3 materials, but you will more than often end up losing gold. I don't really have any problems with acquiring gold in the game, and I find that my T3 materials are more the limiting factor, so I tend to use this method more often than not. But that might not be the case for you. So just some general guidelines that you would want to use the 10% method if you're upgrading many characters. You might end up kind of failing on some characters and costing a lot, but on others you might save a lot. So this is based on averages, and it only really works when you're upgrading a lot of characters. Another reason why you might want to use the 10% method is if you're low on T3 or T2 materials. Instead of waiting, this does provide you an option to kind of move ahead and not be restricted by what you have. And this goes hand in hand with the third point, which is if you have a lot of gold, but you're low on the materials, then it provides you another avenue to progress forward. With that being said, you might not want to use this method if you're only upgrading maybe 1 or 2 characters, say every patch or maybe 2 months or so. Like I mentioned before, the 10% method is based on averages, so if you're only upgrading a few characters, you might not necessarily see that benefit and might actually end up losing in the short term. And counter to the last point, you don't really want to use this method if you're low on gold. It is more gold intensive, and you saw that even though I got lucky on Knull's potential enhancement, I still ended up losing gold in the long run. The last point is pretty obvious. If you hate RNG or risk, then you don't really want to touch this method at all. But the upgrades are not done there. Even though I got the enhancement finished, I still need to upgrade Knull from level 68 to 70. To do so, it's going to cost 1,509 bios, or alternatively, if I use BAM, it's 1,257. That means if you were to use only bios, going from level 60 to 70 for Knull will cost you 6,000 bios roughly, and if you were to use only rank 1 black antimatter, it would cost you 5,004. Even though I used all those T3 materials and bios, I'm still not done upgrading Knull because I obviously also have to upgrade his gears from level 20 to 25. If you remember at the beginning, I had 276 million gold and now I have 260 million. So that means I've used up 16 million gold roughly to do all the enhancements. I'm showing my T3 materials here very quickly so you can see kind of a snapshot of what I have before I do my gear upgrades. So I'm going to put on a little bit of the techno music here as you've heard in my other videos just to quickly speed through this and see what the final cost of upgrading all the gears is. So as you can see here, the upgrades cost about 20 million gold, or 21 million to be exact, whereas the T3 material costs were about 1000 CCF and about 2300 Essence of Dimension and Titan component packs. They were pretty much the same. The material cost seems a bit steep, but considering this is a native T3 character, it's not really that horrible. To get all these upgrades, the costs from 60 to 70 have been roughly about 36 million gold. But since I'm going for a top rank Knull, it's going to cost me a little bit extra with all the enhancements. Now the enhancements up to level 5 weren't that bad, but 6 is the one that is the most painful, the most dreadful. Unfortunately, I didn't even have enough cubes to do the level 6 enhancement, so I had to try my hand at least to craft one of the cubes so I could even attempt a level 6 enhancement. I absolutely loathe type 6 enhancement because when I did it for Thanos, I ended up failing 37 times in a row. So you can imagine when I saw this, I totally lost my mind. Type 6 was just one try on a native tier 3. It's so beautiful. But yeah, with that final upgrade and just 2 million more gold, I ended up using 38 million gold and ended up getting from rank 35 to rank 1. That's right, this is a rank 1 build, so all that cost and all that showcase pretty much shows you how much it takes to get a rank 1 character, especially for native T3. As a last quick reference, this is what my stats looked like before all the upgrades, and this is what it looks like now after all the upgrades. And that pretty much wraps up this video. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to add that below in the comment section. And if you're curious how rank 1 Knull performs, I'll probably make a video on how he does in PvE and PvP, including what good teams you can put him on in Alliance Conquest as well. If you found the video interesting or helpful, then a like and subscribe always helps out. Thanks for your time, but the video's now over.